In today's video, I'm going to show you guys how I go from this to this. This is my everyday makeup. I look naked in this angle, so I'm gonna back up a little bit. It's usually makeup that I wear every day, especially for work or meeting up with friends on a hot day, that I want both to be breathable and natural looking and more of that organic feel instead of a full glam. I already washed my face and prepped my skin, but I wanted to carry through to the everyday makeup portion of it and get started with the base layer. So for the base layer, I like to mix two shades. It is a transitional period for me between seasons, so I'm not quite as tan as I usually am in the summer, but I'm also not as light as I used to be. So I go ahead and mix these two tinted moisturizers together. So Saie in shade 3, and this is from Kiko Milano, something I picked up in Italy. And something that I love about this is that it's half foundation and half moisturizer slash serum. So it's divided up into two pumps, and you can actually just use the pump that you want for the day, which is nice. Because I want extra moisture for today, I'm actually going to pump both at the same time. And then I'm going to go ahead and squeeze some of the Saie tinted moisturizer as well. I kind of use my hand as a palette. I go in with one of my fingers and rub it in, and voila. It's a good way to kind of find your shade without having to rely too heavily on the shade match. And I like to have different darkness of the existing shade that I have that I can just modify throughout all 4 seasons. So I recently got this Sephora brush set. This is the #1 foundation brush. I quite like it. It's easy to apply, it goes on very smoothly, and I also feel like for the price, it does a fairly good job of blending it into your skin. I usually do just a quick light layer on my skin first, all over. If I'm going for the full glam look, I typically under layer with like bronzers or blush because I want to build more dimensions into it. But because this is my everyday look, I want more simplicity and that clean girl look. And make sure when you do blend it down that you bring it all the way down to your neck. Cover the eyes. Again, very light, thin layer that you want. Don't want it to look too heavy. I like to go in a circular motion. Your face is a canvas, and basically you don't want the brush strokes to show. You don't want to bring too much abrasion to your skin. You don't want to go too rough or too scratchy for your skin, but make sure that you're kind of going in all sorts of angle so that you don't see any obvious streak marks. And just grab a little bit from your palm and then tap it into your beauty blender, and this just really seals it all in together. And I think it's doing the job of like putting it into your skin so that your skin absorbs a little bit of that moisturizer. And the beautiful thing about tinted moisturizer is that it really combines back with your skincare and makes this tint almost look like your skin. As you can see, a little goes a very long way. Now that I did the foundation, the next step would be my eyebrows. You'll see that I actually have microblading done. I did it like 5 years ago and it's still somehow intact. There are days where I'm just like, this looks a little bit too like tattooy, but someday maybe I'll get it removed again. Because I went over with the foundation, I just like to go over with the Too Faced, I think this is the Too Faced. Go in with the Too Faced brow brush to make sure that there's no like obvious foundation over my eyebrows and that it still looks darker than the rest. And then I'll go in with this brow brush to make sure that there's no gunk left on my eyebrow. I haven't used that brow brush in a long time, so I just want to make sure that it's blending in evenly. Next, I want to define my eyebrows a bit because I can't shape my eyebrows, but rather I have to shape the skin around it. So I tried to do an optical illusion with more foundation. So I'm using the Dior Forever Skin Perfect in Skin 1.5N. On days that I do want more coverage, I wear this all over my face, but I sort of want to use it today as a concealer. It's not as thick as a concealer, but it's thicker than tinted moisturizer, so it's perfect for me for today's purpose. I go in slightly under my eyebrows just to thin out my eyebrows a tad. I think my microblading has made the eyebrows spread a little bit, just like any tattoos would. So I just try to set the eye bed and eyelid, but also make the eyebrow lines a little bit sharper. Then after that, I actually go in with a bronzer. I do both liquid and powder for this. I have the NARS Laguna palette here, and then I also have the Saie in shade Salt. I first go in with the liquid. This is a cooler tone shade of bronzer, just a couple of dots, to where I actually want to show a shading effect. And I usually put it in areas where you would see a natural casted shadow when there is light in front of me. So up at the top, a little bit with the cheekbones, some in the eyebrows, down to the nose bridge. To put a little bit more warmth back into my skin, I always do a test run on the back of my hand because I don't want it to apply too thick at first. Go in at the top of my cheek and bring that up to like the temple area to blend it in. You essentially just want to look slightly sun-kissed. And then with whatever is remaining, I bring it back down to the jawline and into the hairline to the neck. So you'll notice that as I'm like applying the brushes across my face, there are certain acne spots that do resurface. I just leave it alone for now, let everything else sit, and then I actually go on top of it to do more coverage for those spots. For blush, I'm gonna use the Rhode Toasted Teddy. I quite like how this blush applies on my skin. It's very easy to blend, easy to build, which is what you want in a bronzer or a blush. So I went ahead and put it on my hand. That melts the product a little bit, and that way you have a lot more control. Use your hand as a palette and blend it till the shade that you want, and then go in on top of your face and apply it, really accentuating towards your scalp. Mid of the middle area of your cheek and all the way up. Again, bronzer and blush, you don't want it to just look like it's stuck in one area. You want it to naturally blend into the rest of your face so that it really looks like a glow rather than something that you plopped. I have to say the color match of this is incredible. I use the eyeshadow or just like a flat brush. I apply a little bit and then I essentially pat it on the problem spots and it goes away. And this is a good way to build the layers so that you're not just putting like a dot of concealer to cover it up and it kind of looks unnatural against the rest of your makeup. You want to blot it in to cover the area, but blend the blot to the rest of the skin. Then I go in with a big brush like this and like to blend a bit more. So this one usually doesn't have any product on it for me. Just kind of acts as a blurring effect for all the products to get married together. So that's the base. So in terms of eyeshadow, I'll keep it pretty natural. I picked up this neutral palette from Clio when I was in Korea. I do think they sell this in the US online, but I take the brightest color and highlight the brow bones. I also think this is the area where I get to the end of the day and it's really shiny. So I like to go on top of my brows and just reduce that shine up front. And then I'll go in with a slightly darker shade. Again, this palette doesn't actually go that deep. And it's intended to just be a very natural smoky effect. Go into the corner of my eye and make it slightly darker. So for this type of look, I usually don't care about precision at all. I think what I do care about is the natural blending of all the different colors and shades. So I just want to make sure my foundation is evenly blended into my blush and then evenly blended into my bronzer, and then same effect for my eyes. I'm just adding a little bit of depth of color into my eye rather than that dramatic effect. For this, because I want to keep it clean, I'm just going to do a slight wing at the end for my eye and then curl my eyelashes for the mascara. My recent favorite for my mascara has been this Japanese brand. It's in the shade brown, Heroine make, I think that's what it's called. But I've had this maybe for like a month now, and it's like nowhere near dry. It also goes on so beautifully, and it's one of those mascara where it doesn't clump. You can build it to look dramatic, but you could also do a really thin layer and it just kind of like puts the lashes together. Before I do the eyelashes, I'll do the eyeliner first. This is Judy Doll. I think I picked it up from TikTok shop. I love how razor sharp it is. I think at this point, I've learned to just one-hand it. For every day, I just want it to accentuate and elongate the eyes rather than something that covers up my eyelid folds. Go in with the eyelash curler. This has been my favorite brand so far. I've tried everything under the sun, but Shiseido is really good for Asian eyes. We tend to have flatter dimensions, and the eyelash curler is designed perfectly for that. So this is one of the only curlers that gets the equipment as close to my eyes without actually pinching anywhere. Start from the root and then bring it slowly out as I squeeze it, because I want to build that natural curl up. Wow, I'm realizing how hard this is to do in front of a camera. I got my mascara. Especially for my everyday look, I try to take all the excess off. Then lift, and apply. Going in with the second layer. So the good thing about brown eyeliners is that you can create a very natural look and feel, but I like to layer it after the first layer dries. I recently picked up this eyeshadow stick from Color Fix. It glides on beautifully and it's hydrating at the same time, because I've tried a lot of shadow sticks before and they do not go on this pretty, let alone feel almost refreshing. So just to add that little like pop of the eye, I put it at the corners of my eyes and then blend it in a little bit with the finger. We're nearing the end, and this is when we go in with a powder blush. You'll see that I essentially am using 2 different shades of blush, and I like that because it adds more dimension to the face. It almost makes it look like that it's like a natural glow rather than you're just like plopping on blush IMO. So 2 different shades, almost like red to orangey. So scooped up some, put it on the hand first, and then go into your face. Go up, up, up. Tad on the nose, tad in the forehead, giving that sun-kissed look. Again, flat brush, pat, 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 and dot it gently. This is probably a good time to set the face. Not gonna set it with a cushion as I normally do for a full beat of face, but I do want to prevent some of the oil prone T-zones, and I'm using the Huda Beauty Cherry Blossom Cake and a small brush. I pick up the product, tap, tap, tap. Whatever remains under the eye, on the brow bone. Like, I'm ever so touching my skin because I don't want to rub away any product. I essentially want to set it gently on top, absorbing some of that liquid and combining to provide a beautiful texture. There we go. We are almost there. So the last step, actually 2 more steps, setting spray and lips. This may be a myth, this may be something I just made up, but I go in with 2 different setting sprays. I go in with the Sephora makeup setting spray, and then I go in with the Kosas Cloud Set. This is not a required step. So this is how we're finishing up for today. Obviously my setting spray has to dry, and let me get the hair pieces out of my face. But it's looking good so far. And even in person, I feel like it looks so natural. It looks like second skin. The warmth to my face feels very natural, and what's really good is that it feels light too. For days that you're gonna be outside or days that you're gonna be soaking in the sun a lot more, it's a good lightweight everyday makeup look to go with. Lip combo, I want something neutral to just retain the color in my natural lips, but also add a bit of shadowing effect. So I'm gonna go in with the Rhode Lunge and outline the corners. Then I'm gonna go in with this e.l.f. Rose Envy lip oil.